Hello, everyone, and welcome back to our pair programming series, where we take a look at some Orchid Core project of one of the Orchid Core community members and do a little bit of coding. We talk about how our guest works usually, and otherwise just enjoy ourselves with some Orchid Core code. So our guest today is Peter Matthews, who brought us something very cool. A Blazor project. So there have been talks about Blazor, using Blazor with Orchid Core on and off in the Orchid Core community, but I don't believe we have seen any larger scale real life project yet. So I'm really excited to have Peter here. So over to you, and please show us what you have built.
Thank you. My name is Peter Matthews. I work at a company called Data8. This is us here. And we are a data cleansing company or a data quality company. There's two different main parts of the company, which is, first of all, about data cleansing, which you, if you're writing a mailing campaign or an email campaign, you want to make sure that all of the emails in your database are all valid and correct, and all of the addresses are right, and there's no duplicates or stuff like that. And the other side of the company is working with data validation. Now, the most obvious way we're working with this is through something called predictive address. If you ever type in a postcode or a zip code into a web form and press on Find My Address, and a list of addresses comes up, that's us that makes that connection between your zip code and the addresses that you can see on that. So this isn't actually the site which I'm going to show you, but this is just the introduction. This is our website. Part of the projects that I've been working on for the past year has been evolving this site and migrating it from some of the older technologies that we're using into some of the newer technologies, and especially into Blazor. The whole of our client services apps have been changed over to Blazor, and the site which I've been working on recently is our API docs site, our API documentation. And that's why I've given you a bit of a background, just so that I can show you what the actual finished project that I've been able to come up with here is like. And we will see that here.
And by the way, Peter, does your company's platform also integrate with CRMs or something like that?
Yes, yeah. We've got a huge level of integration into a lot of different CRMs, and we're looking to extend that all the time as well. So a lot of them are actually just point and click, where you can integrate our stuff into even Microsoft Teams. We've got plugins for Microsoft Teams to do validation right there within SharePoint and Teams, all that kind of stuff as well. I don't have a full list here of all the different CRMs that we cater for, but there is Dynamics and FormStack, Shopify, and there's a whole range of others. And our customer services are all there to help out with that. I'm a developer, so I'm not clued in on the whole on the customer service side of it and actually selling a company like this. So don't take everything I say for granted, but if anybody is interested, we are a global company, and all of the information will be available both within the stream here, and if you can contact me afterwards as well. But this is the site which I've been working on.
Sorry to not let you continue, but I would just be curious. What's the Drupal and the WordPress integration about, and will you have an Orchid Core one?
I'm actually trying to plug that at the moment. We do have WordPress plugins for Contact 7. So data validation, address validation for Contact 7, and there are various other WordPress plugin type things we've got as well. Drupal as well. We're trying to look at market share quite a lot at the moment. So obviously WordPress is miles ahead of everything else. and I think will be for quite a long time. Drupal was used quite a lot within big business and industry, so we have catered for that as well, and we've tried to cater as various different markets come and go. We try to cater for them, but yeah, at the moment I am pushing for to create a Orchard Core module for some of the stuff that we are doing. That's definitely something in the pipeline, yeah.
Awesome, thank you. Such integrations can perhaps also help adoption for Orchard Core, of course.
Yes, definitely. It's the more easy it is to use a product, then like Orchard Core, the more stuff there is out there for it, the better it is in general.
Right, thank you.
The API, we have essentially two different APIs. We have the data cleansing and the data validation. And this is the integrations is the way you can actually add that into your own sites using Ajax or MVC. And we also have unobtrusive Ajax jQuery as well. And then how to add in predictive address. These are the different web services that we offer down here, the different validation web services, and then all of the different cleansing services here. All of this is brought into this website through Orchard Core. All these menus at the bottom here, all of this menu at the side here, and all of this at the top here. These are just menus from inside Orchard Core. This is the actual site title that you add in at the beginning when you first do the setup for Orchard Core. And all of these, the content within each page is mainly just a markdown section within a content type, a custom content type. So if we go into the API keys here, we can see some of the other features of the website. We can see that we have syntax highlighting within the markdown. And a copy button, and if we click on the copy button, we have this toast that comes up at the top here. So this has been brought in via Fluent UI. So we're bringing in a lot of different types of technology here. Fluent UI, Markdig to render all of the markdown, Markdig syntax highlighting to render out the syntax highlighting for these as well. And then if we go into the JWT tokens, this is where it gets a little bit more interesting. Again, you can see we have the introduction, how to generate a token using the tokens. But down here, this is a web service. So we can actually get a JWT token out of a web service. And we can see that within this method page or the endpoint page. This shows us all about the endpoint, all about the different URLs we can use, the different parameters we can pass in, the different advanced options, the different results that come back from it, sample code use with different languages. And this is where it gets really interesting, because all of this is generated on the fly. All of this code is generated from the actual web services themselves. We import them into this website and we generate all of this code and then spit it back out to the user. And if we come into email validation here, this is the easiest to show. Again, we have our endpoints, and down at the bottom of this one, once we get past the sample code, we can see we actually have a live demo as well. So the email address we're looking at here is info@data8.co.uk. We have a certain number of credits per day, just as for demo purposes. Click on try it now, and we get the live results back. This is actually calling out directly to our web server and getting live valid results back. And so we can see that this comes back as valid. However, if we put this as data9.co.uk, because we're actually working at the level of the MX subs, the name server, so we're looking at a DNS level rather than the address level or syntax level. We're working at this it looks at the domain and whether this domain is valid as well. So if we try this now, then this comes back as invalid because there is no website called data9.co.uk.
Probably time for your competitors to register it right now.
Yeah. Yeah, just one better, maybe. So this is the site. Within the cleansing services, we just have a quick look at one of these. Because the reason why I'm showing this is because it's interesting in the Orchard core how we've actually set this out within the admin editors. And so these cleansing services have an amount of required data. So this one requires an address and somebody's name, and an optional to make it more effective, the last transaction date that were made with your company. And then this is for mover. So this basically tells us whether the customer that you're looking for, this customer, has moved address or not since they last made a transaction with you. And so we search through a database called Goneaway, which will come back with a forwarding address. If somebody moves house, then they can set a forwarding address. And if we can find that forwarding address, then we say that this person is now living at this address. So within here, there's a number of different options you can set when you upload data, when you download the data. It adds these columns to the data that you add in, like the CSV file that you pass to us. It will add these columns into it, and that's pretty much it for this, because this just tells you what it's actually doing, how the service works. But as you can see, there's a huge amount of data on here, and all of these are coming directly from Orchard core. So I suppose I'll give a quick introduction to the background, the admin section of it as well. Come into here. Then I've created some custom admin menus here to make it easier for newer developers to actually join in. We can see that all the content pages are here, web service pages, methods, all the integrations. And so if we come into just one of these, we can search for home, I suppose. Oh, no, wrong. Search for home. And we can see the page content here is what we saw on the home page, just here. So it's really nice and simple to add new pages, to create new structures, and to work with the background of it. The bit that I really like is actually having these tabs. It took me ages to work out how to add these tabs and to work with them properly. We've actually upgraded or migrated this site from Umbraco, and the admin editors within Umbraco work very, very tightly with these tabs. So you set up a tab first, and then you set up the content that you want within that tab. And so I wanted a familiar feel to people, so I worked through actually getting these tabs set up within here. And I think if we go into like one of the web service methods, these have got like 5 different tabs in with all of this different information in.
Did you do this simply with placement? Because with placement you can add such tabs.
Yes. So if we come into design placements, we can see all of these different ones here with different differentiators in, and different places on here.
So I presume then the hard part was not actually doing this, but figuring out that you can use placement to add tabs, right?
Yes. Yeah. The most difficult part of it was actually I think content pickers. No. Content parts. Yes, it was content parts. This was the most difficult part because it wasn't obvious how to add them in, and it should have been because it's pretty much exactly the same. But there was subtle differences between adding placements for a part rather than adding placements for a field. So I can't remember fully what it was now that I got stuck on, because it's been quite a while since I've actually figured it all out, and I'm quite good now at actually setting up the placements before I even add in the fields. So I think, okay, so I know that in the integrations page, I want to add in a new field into the extra markdown sections tab. So I can just grab this and paste that into there, change this to 1 to bring it down the page a little bit further. And I know that I'm going to end up calling the part of this is going to be HTML part, something like that. And so I would then take this name here and then use that, or like HTML section is probably a better idea. So, and then I take this and actually create the field based on what I've done with the placement here. So I already know exactly where it's going to be within the editor. But it did take a long time to get to that stage, to understand how placements worked, how the different types of placement work as well, because you can have different cards or tabs, and seeing it all come together was really quite nice.
Yeah, it looks so. By the way, if you found some omissions in the documentation, since you are a relatively newcomer to the system and the community, please submit pull requests to fix this, because later it will be obvious to you. Well, probably now it's obvious to you, and you won't really know what needs to be added to the docs. So please.
Yes, I will do. Yeah, I think the placements were changed. The way that they worked changed, and I read a article on what basically on the changelog of that, and I can't remember who wrote it, but it was something like they were writing down the ideas for how the placement should work, and then I tried that, and basically it just worked from that one article I found. It all kind of clicked into place, and it's been okay since then.
All right.
But today, I think that's kind of a good introduction to the site itself, and I think we're going to go into a lot more detail about the site and the actual source code behind it in the session which will be coming up after this. But not to plug it too early, but if we have a second session for this, then we'll go into a lot of detail about that. And there's some questions that I'd like to ask about that as well, because I've just been going through this, just kind of bull rushing through it, trying to get it done. So it's probably not the neatest code I could ever write, but it all works and it's all here. So I'd like to see from an Orchard Core perspective, like how was it envisaged that it should be done compared to what I have actually done. That would be really interesting to see.
Okay,
but if we come out of this, all of this now, I actually want to take people now on a journey from what we see now, a completely blank desktop, through to a fully working, decoupled Blazor and Orchard Core application. And there are a few stages to this, and it's a bit convoluted in places. It's a bit counterintuitive, and I want to run through this, deliberately making mistakes and then fixing them, because these are the mistakes that I made. They are the mistakes that other people will make. And so we're starting off with a completely blank screen here, and we're going to go to new project. I'm actually going to start off with a new blank solution. just so that we've got absolutely nothing at all. I'm going to say Blazor Orchard demo. I'm going to put this in C:, dev/demo and create. And so now we have a solution with no projects. I'm going to add in a couple of solution folders. It's one for source and one for ref. This is just my way of doing things. Choose your way of setting your solution out however you like. And we're going to start off with Blazor.
What would be ref for? What kind of references do you mean?
This is going to be for the Orchard Core project itself. So we're going to have the Blazor project in here. We're going to have the Orchard Core project in here. And then we're going to take everything out of the Orchard Core project and add it into Blazor. This is the absolute easiest way of doing it.
So, sorry, you are using Orchard Core from the source, not from NuGet?
No, I'm actually adding in a new. No, it is from file new project. So if I add in Blazor first, and you'll see exactly what I mean after that. If we add a new project as a Blazor web app, we'll say .web app. And so this is the project which we are actually going to be setting up. I'm going to have it on interactive render mode as server, and we're going to have this as global. And that's just to simplify everything for this demo. This works pretty much exactly the same with interactive with WebAssembly or auto mode. However, of course, with WebAssembly, it's largely just about creating an API layer to talk to Orchard. So you create your Orchard Core API on the server, and then that would connect to a WebAssembly app. So it's not very interesting to talk about that because it's quite obvious how it works. It works just like a React app. It works just like an MVC app in that respect. You're just passing data down from the server to the client. So there's no real challenge in that. However, with server render mode, you're actually talking to Razor from your web server. So you're talking to Orchard from your web server, not from a client. So there's a lot more nuances and intricacies within this that you don't get with WebAssembly. So that's why we're using interactive server here. But as I say, everything I'm showing here, you can add in WebAssembly at any point and it will still work. You just need that API layer in between, as you would with any single WebAssembly project you make. We are going to include sample pages as well because we're going to Orchardify these sample pages. And not adding any authentication either. That's something for a whole other video, that is. Trying to get authentication to work in Blazor. There's a whole field of study about that.
Why did you choose to use Blazor for the front end as opposed to going the full CMS approach with everything in Orchard Core?
Largely because for the last year, every single workday I've been working with Blazor. We already have a massive pile of components that we can use within Blazor. We also wanted a kind of unified dev experience for new people joining us and for the whole dev team. We only started using Blazor a year ago, and everybody's taken to it really well. So moving away from Blazor now, when we're trying to codify and unify everything together, seems like a step backwards. So while we could try and use like a just Orchard with a full CMS, that means we'd have to spend time actually learning what the Liquid templating thing is. None of us have ever used Liquid before, so that would be a whole new thing to learn. And again, stepping back away from Razor Pages and wanting to use Blazor and some of the stuff that we built for Blazor. For instance, we've built our own smart components. We've actually added AI into some of the Blazor components in our client services site for smart searches, semantic searching and stuff like that. So we can actually just take those components and stick them into this site and they will just work because they'll be connected to our servers. Whereas if we were using something like Razor Pages, then we'd have to make them backwards compatible as well, which would be a lot more difficult.
Okay, so basically it was more about the skill sets of the team and the preferences of the team and your existing tooling rather than the specific application.
Yes, yeah. I did have a look at doing it with a full CMS, but I'm in no way a front-end developer. I'm not a web page designer. So with Orchard Core, with Blazor, I can get something up and running really quite nice and easily, and I can make it look nice on screen by using Fluent UI. Also, one of the reasons why we use Blazor as well is for the use of Fluent UI. All of the integrations we do with SharePoint, with Teams, all of the different PCOs we build are all built with Fluent UI. So it creates this consistent layout for our users as well, if they are used to seeing Fluent UI components.
All right.
Okay, so we've got our Blazor app here, but we need to add in Orchard. So we will add in a new project here. And I have these Orchard Core projects set up here. If you want to get these installed, then we can come to the Orchard Core docs site and have a look for getting started and the templates, the Orchard Core CMS templates. And if we copy this line out of here into a terminal, then this will actually install the project templates so that we can just click on File and New Project. So the 5 different types we have here, we have the theme, we have the MVC app, we have the module, we have the CMS web app, and we have the CMS module. The one we want is the actual full CMS web app here. And so we'll add this in. We will say this is going to be CMS. And we'll add this into the ref folder. With this, I actually want 1.8.3. We'll keep this as nlog. You can use Serilog here as well, but I want to use as much kind of next install stuff as possible so that it's as vanilla and as accessible for everybody. If somebody just creates one of these projects and just goes next create, this is what they will have. And so now we have these 2 projects side by side. We have our Blazor project and we have our Orchard Core project. So just to show these working, press on play because it takes it takes a bit of time the first time these start to actually load up. But that has come up nice and quickly. And so we can see this is the standard Blazor sample site. We have the home, we have the weather, and we have a counter which clicks upwards. This is using stream rendering, so that's why we see the loading and then the data. This is static, so this is just static HTML, and then this one is using SignalR, so that we have this interactivity there as well. And so that is the basic Blazor app. If we change over to the CMS and we launch this, then we will see the all too familiar Orchard Core setup screen, which we're not actually going to set up a site yet. We will do this later on because it's one of the pitfalls, again, I want to showcase that people will fall into, that I fell into, and I want other people to learn from it. So we can see the sites are working side by side, but we need to merge them both together now. So for now, I'm going to keep the Solution Explorer open.
Did you find a way to start both applications, by the way, from Visual Studio simply, like it's something like Control F5?
Yeah, I mean, you can. I think you can double click on both of these now and set as startup projects. So now when you click on Start, it should open IIS and Blazor. So we have these two now running side by side.
Okay, great.
But of course, that's not really what we want. We want to have both of these within the same project, but you want to fold this project into this one now. And some of this is really nice and easy. We have this nlog.config here, and we can literally just copy that or paste that straight into here. So that's the first piece of the puzzle. The next piece of the puzzle is actually adding Orchard Core, the NuGet packages into this web app here. The simplest way of doing this is to go to the CS project file, copying these 4 lines here, which is the package reference for Orchard Core application and for the logging. And we can just paste these into the web app here. And we can save that. And so this is just added in the NuGet projects into our Blazor project. There's one other thing I'm going to add in here, which will save a lot of problems, well, a lot of annoyances later on. I'm going to change this from nullable enable to nullable annotations. And that just saves a lot of green squiggly lines later on whilst we're doing a demo. We don't need to be so worried about nullables whilst we're doing a little demo here. For a full-scale production app, you will want to keep that on enabled, and you'll want to make sure that you are looking after your nullables. So we actually have Orchard Core within our Blazor app now, but of course it's not doing anything. We haven't set it up at all. So the next part is to have a look within the program.cs for each of them. And this is where we'll be doing a lot more of the work now. So bring these side by side. We can see we have our Orchard CMS here, and we have our Blazor app here. The first, if we work top to bottom, the first thing we can see is we want to add in the logging into the host. So I'm going to cut that out of this project and add it into this project. And now working down, we can see that we add in Orchard Core on here into the service collection, and on here we can see we add in Blazor into the service collection here. So we're going to grab the Orchard Core services, and we're going to add those in. In fact, we'll add them in before. Whoops, sorry, clicked the wrong button. We'll add those in before Blazor. So at the moment, I'm doing this kind of instinctively, how I would think it should be done. I'm doing this wrong at the moment, deliberately, because I want to show you why it's wrong and how it's wrong. And now, if we look further on down the file, we can see after we actually build the application, all of this is the same. We add in the HTTPS redirection, that's all the same. We add in the static files. Here we have anti-forgery for Blazor. And then we're using some middleware here for Orchard Core. So we're going to cut that out, and we're going to add that into the middleware pipeline here. And then after we've completed the middleware pipeline, then we actually map the endpoints. Now, some people that have worked with this before will probably already see some glaring errors with this and see exactly what is wrong here. But for somebody new coming into this looks like it should work. We start at the top, we add Orchard Core into the service collection, we add Blazor into the service collection, we come down here, we add Orchard Core into the middleware pipeline because we have this use here. That means it's middleware. And then we end up with the endpoints here, mapping the endpoints for Blazor. And then we run the application. So this seems like it should all work. And just to show you with the Orchard Core thing now, we've actually done with this. There's nothing else Orchard Core worthy in here. This CS project file, sorry, this program.cs can now go away. And in fact, this entire project can go away now. So we'll remove that. We'll remove the reference folder, and we're just left with our own web application here. And if we run this, it seems to be okay. We'll see that it will come up with the standard Blazor homepage, but we do get this, an error has occurred. And that's happening because we set it to global before with the interactivity mode. If we come into the console, the browser console here, we can see that the circuit failed to initialize. So in fact, if we make a bit of a change here, come to the app.razor, I'm just doing this for demonstration purposes. If we take this render mode out of here and then launch the application again, because of this, and we launch this again. We can see now we don't get any error at the bottom. Our weather still works. Our counter, though, doesn't because it's not interactive. So then if we come into our pages and into counter here, we can add the render mode into this. And again, this is just to make a point. Interactive server. And that needs to be I can't remember how to do this now. It is render mode, isn't it? Render mode. And then interactive server. That should be it. I think it's because we don't have it in here. Imports. Using Microsoft.ASP Core. It is render mode here. Dot components, dot web. No, I can't remember. Anyway. Oh, no, that is working. Okay, I was correct. So now if we come in, we can see this was what it would be like if you had the per component rendering. So the main page works, be wherever works, but as soon as we get somewhere that has interactivity with it, where you should be able to click a button and something happens because of that, then we get this problem with the circuit failed to initialize. And that is because even though this looks like middleware, this is not middleware. This is actually middleware and mapping endpoints. So what this really should be, and this is maybe a bit of a criticism for Orchard Core, there should be really two different stages to this. We should have a use Orchard Core, which is the middleware pipeline. And then there should also really be map Orchard Core as well. And so this would make it a lot more clear that this is not just middleware. This is not something to carry on with afterwards. This is the last point that your application should touch. Because this is what maps everything to do with Orchard Core into the application. So that is the first problem we've come across. And so if we can't do routing, so if the routing isn't working here, and the render modes aren't working, then what could be the problem? And there's a bit of a clue up here because this has been commented out. And so if we say, but instead of routing everything down at the bottom, we want to route everything within Orchard Core, that would seem sensible. So we'll add this into here and we'll use the routes from there. So this seems like it should be better, maybe. We'll give it a try.
By the way, about splitting that use Orchard Core method, I think it's a good point. We also had similar issues when registering some security headers. Did it somehow else. So yeah, please open an issue about it, and maybe we can have it for 2.0.
Yeah. It is just because it's a specific convention that use. If you prefix something with use, then it's part of a middleware pipeline. And the one biggest thing with middleware is that it passes on afterwards. So you expect to use something afterwards. Your mapping should come after your middleware, or at least shouldn't be an intrinsic part of it. It should be explicit wherever you're mapping stuff. But we can see that this hasn't worked at the moment. There's a lot of stuff here which might give us some clues. He's routing use anti-forgery. Okay, so he's looking for the anti-forgery. So we need to add in the anti-forgery into here. We'll probably need the static files as well. So we'll dump all of that into there. And again, you can probably see where this is going, because we can try this now and the anti-forgery should be okay. We should be able to get static files okay. And indeed, we see the site, it looks okay. We go into the weather, that's okay. Counter, no, same problem again. So if it's not the configuration, then it must be this bit. So this is the bit which really caught me out when I was first looking at this, is Orchard Core has its own scoped service collection. And in here, this is scope 2. Out here, this is scope 1. So what happens out here doesn't affect what happens in here, and vice versa. So what we actually end up doing here is the only thing that gets added to our outer scope is Orchard Core. Everything else gets mapped within Orchard Core. And of course, we use this services here. So our application is hosting Orchard Core. Orchard Core is now hosting Blazor. And that is the way that we have to get this to work. So now if we press play, finally, this should all work. So we have our
scope 2 there is not just a separate scope, but also a child scope of scope 1.
Yes. We have our weather app we can see works, and now finally our counter ends up working. So now we have full productivity within Blazor, and also, but now again we have maybe a problem here. We have no admin, we have no setup. We need to actually get Blazor set up. Now this is where you can do this in a number of different ways. There are ways to add in an existing site. What you could do is copy in just an app data folder from another project into this. You can set up a full database first and then use the connection string from that database within your app settings. Lots and lots of different ways of doing this. Many of them are detailed on the Orchard Core documentation site, so have a look at that for various different ways of doing this. However, for this demo and for what I actually did at the very, very beginning of our production app, I just take out the mapping for Blazor. And now, even though we've added in Blazor as a dependency, we're not mapping to it anymore. And so now, as soon as you comment out that line, the Orchard Core kicks in and takes you straight to this setup page. And so once you've got this set up, once you've passed this page, then you can just put the mapping back in. So you only need to do this once. So it's a nice little cheeky way of setting this up.
And by the way, going forward, will you map a separate URL to the Orchard Core admin and the front end, because you still need to somehow be able to access both?
No, once you've got this set up, the admin, because of the way that it is mapped within Orchard, the entire admin section is its own MVC area. And so your MVC areas are routed separately at a much earlier stage than the Blazor routing allows. So, and there are a few things with this actually that I want to talk about probably in much more detail next week. For instance, I use routing via alias rather than via auto route. I find that much easier to be able to write components around a content type and then grab those content types by alias to be able to display. And that's something unique with Blazor, I suppose, because you can have these entire components that aren't routable, but you still need to be able to get data out. So if you have that auto route section, then you are limited to that URL, and that URL will always go to that component. But if you use alias routing, then you can specify exactly where you want your routes to be at any stage.
Okay, so this trick was only necessary really because the setup is only accessible under /, right?
Yeah.
So if you could change that, because you would have a configuration for a setup screen, then this wouldn't be an issue.
Oh yes, yeah, definitely. Yeah, if you had a .init or .setup or something, sorry, /setup, then yes, that would take you directly to this page. The Orchard Core routing overrides everything that Blazor does. So Blazor is a fallback to anything that Orchard Core can't route, essentially.
Okay. By the way, this is just a small thing, and maybe something that would be more interesting if we would turn this into a template. But you can also detect from within Orchard Core whether the setup has run. So maybe you can conditionally add the Blazor mapping, but automatically.
Yes, yeah. Yeah, there's a huge amount there that can be done with this. It would also be nice to be able to wrap some of this up. Like if we did have a Blazor template, then actually have add Orchard core, and in here you've got .add MVC. I think somewhere .add MVC. Yeah. So it would be nice to be able to have something like this, but add Blazor, and then that would add this into the services. It would add this into the configuration, that kind of thing. So here we're just going to set up a basic user admin. In here, this will be, I'll show it, why not? Password. And that's the same. We are setting it up with a headless site, mainly because that's got a bit more of the stuff for content management, GraphQL, that kind of stuff within it. And you can set it up as a blank site to have a look at, just to kind of give yourself peace of mind on the front end when it says like this site cannot be found on the front end. Whereas with a headless site, this will take you directly into the admin section if you don't have the Blazor mappings, whereas the blank site will say page not found. So I'll have that as headless site. Everything else is done using a SQLite database, and finish the setup there. Okay. And we'll log in, and here we go. There is the admin screen, but we all know and love. So from here, we want to now show that this actually properly works. So we will add the Blazor routing back in, and we'll press play again. And now we can finally see that this all works with the interactivity, the stream rendering, the static, and now also with Orchard core as well. So now this project is fully set up to be able to start work, and I suppose we might as well actually do that. I don't know how long we've got left.
About 5 minutes. So we are. This would be a great checkpoint, by the way. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I can show a very quick demo of getting a couple of. I've got some snippets that I can use.
Yeah, please.
So I'm going to add in a new component here, and this is just the basic way of getting out stuff from from Orchard core into your application. So we're going to create a new Blazor component, and we're going to call that Orchard core provider. Within this, I want to, the only thing we're going to do here, this is going to be a cascaded parameter. So we're going to cascade a value down, which is actually this component. So this component will be available on anything that you pass down into here. And what we're passing down into here is the entire routing system of Blazor. So every single page within this application will have access to everything that this class has. We're not going to add too much. We're going to inject in our iSite service from Orchard core. And then when we initialize, we're going to have the site. So we're going to get the site information, the site settings. We're going to do that on initialization. We're going to just grab the site settings from the site service. That's really nice and easy there. So within our app here now, instead of this routes, we actually want to wrap this now. We can say our Orchard core provider, and we're going to have that as a render mode equals interactive server. It needs to be like that. And we're also going to have this on the head outlets as well. And so now if we look in our nav menu here, we have the name of the application here. But we want this to be the name that we set within within Orchard rather than this Blazor Orchard demo.web app. So here we can add in a new code section. Usually I'd like to separate these out into different files. So you can extract the block to code behind here. However, I've been a bit lax with that recently, not as strict as I should be with it. So for this demo, we're not going to. And then we can add in the cascading parameter here, which is going to be as a private Orchard core provider. We'll call this Orchard. We'll get and init. But I'm going to call this properly Orchard provider. And now within this section here, we can go Orchard provider dot site dot what is it now? It's a site name. That's the one. So just by doing that, we now have access to the Orchard provider everywhere within the site. We've added it into here, and we've got the site name from the site information. And now when we press play, we'll see that it's no longer giving the generic title at the top, but it is actually saying Blazor Orchard demo site here. And that's the title that we added in. If we go to that, admin, it's configuration settings general. We can say thank you for watching. Save. And there we go. So it's nice and easy now to be able to take stuff out of Orchard Core and add them to the pages. Next week, we'll see ideas of how to actually get stuff out and show it, actually render it to the page on here. It is pretty much as simple as you would imagine it to be. From now on, it's pretty much plain sailing. It's you're writing your content items within the back here, and then you're mapping them to objects within the front here, and then just displaying them. And it's pretty much that simple from here on out.
Unfortunately, not next week, but next time.
Next time, yes.
Because we'll definitely have a follow-up session here, but not next week because I'll be on a break, and on the week after that for a few days as well. So we'll have the next session a little bit later than in a week, but we'll be able to tell you that shortly via the usual channels. But thank you, Peter. This was awesome. I very much like that it's not really headless in a way that you don't have two applications. When you started, I thought that you will have just two applications, but you know, but one would expect. But no, so this is great because it's much easier to work with the Orchard Core APIs, and no overhead of two apps, of course.
Yeah, as I say, with if you're doing it with WebAssembly, if you want to add WebAssembly into this project, then you will have to do that. You'll have to add in an API layer, and however you want to add in that API layer is completely up to you. Whether you do it through minimal API or Web API, Express, whatever you want to use, just some kind of RESTful API to be able to pass information from client to server.
Yep. Of course, that's still, I would still consider that better than having both that with the server, Blazor server backend, where the Blazor server backend actually talks to an Orchard core backend via web APIs. This will be perhaps a little bit too much.
I suppose about something we will touch on quite heavily next time, I suppose, is building a backend for front end, or a BFF, where you're using the Blazor routing system and having the entire power of Blazor, but then being able to pass that down to WebAssembly as well. So you create your API layer intrinsically within your Blazor server application. It's quite a nice, interesting way of doing it, where you have all of your services as single services, but it's just the way you connect to those services which is different based on whether you're on the client or on the server.
Right. Well, I'm very much looking forward to our next session. So for the audience here, thank you for taking part. Please subscribe to our channel so you get notified when we schedule the next live stream. Be sure to be on the Orchard Core Discord, because among a lot of other things and a lot of community activities otherwise, we also announce these streams there. And this was a very interesting and very unique session. I'm glad that we had this. I hope we'll have something like a template, as Hisham brought up in the chat for this. We do need to do something better with the setup, so it's suitable for a template. It just works.
Yeah, I do have a repo on my GitHub, which has pretty much what we've done today. Within that, it's called Blazor Orchard, or Blazor Orchard. So I will add a link to that within the Discord.
Great, thank you. And I will try to add one now into the chat. So we'll continue probably in maybe 2 weeks. And until then, thank you everyone for joining. And by the way, if you like synchronous events like this, and even more synchronous ones in person, please join us for this year's Orchard Harvest Conference. We'll have it in September in Las Vegas. Finally, after like 7 years, we'll have an in-person conference again. Although last year's online conference was, I think, pretty great too. So that was it for today. Thank you, and bye, everyone.
Bye now.